Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we start, and I will do most of the work during this session, but I need you to help me with one thing, which is really quite the most important part of my 45 minutes. Do me a favor, please, and stand up. Don't look so worried. I'm not going to get you exercising. Put your hand on your heart. Turn around and face the back of the room. So turn around and face the back of the room. Okay? Now, please be careful of the chairs, but take one step forward. Fantastic. Thank you very much. You can sit down. Your part is finished. Please sit down. My part begins. Now, if I was a smartass, I might say, good, the microphone works. But I'm not a smartass. In reality, I like doing this. I'm a reserved person, but I like making these talks. And the only way you get to make talk 2 is if talk 1 gets good press, and then talk 3 comes from talk 2. So now when you get onto social media in the next break, and you don't have to wait until the break, you can say, Deiric McCann got us on our feet. He touched our hearts. He turned us around and he got us moving forward. So for my next booking, I'm now in your debt. I now owe you 44 minutes of good content after that piece. You know, we're here today talking about intergenerational workforces and multiple generations of bringing diverse, supposedly diverse sets of people together. Well, my argument is that if you go close enough to the operating system of us as humans, well, then there is no diversity in that kind. Because male or female, regardless of your color, your nation, your creed, your culture, whether you're old or young, there's one major similarity that unites us. And that is that we all have one of these. And when we recognize the way this works, and we recognize that yours works exactly the same as mine, whether you're 20 or 30 or 40, whether you're male or female, Irish like me, Slovenian, Norwegian, Austrian, really doesn't matter. When you understand the way this thing works, all of the problems of bringing diverse people together disappear. Because when you get below that level of programming and you get a little bit closer to the operating system, we're all the blasted same. And that's what I want to share with you today. I want to share with you some insights into how this wonderful machine in your head works so that you can understand how to show up to people regardless what age they are, where they come from, what color they are, what their beliefs are, etc. And to start that conversation, I'm going to do a small observation test with you, a small experiment, and I'm going to give you some insight into how a certain part of your brain works. Now, this video, which I'll start in a moment, runs for about 2 minutes. It is probably the most boring video on the planet. Not much happens. And all I want you to do is keep your attention on it. And at the end of it, I'm going to ask you to notice what's going on with you. Ready? I want you to notice, it doesn't matter what age you are, what nationality you are, where you came from. Right now, your heart is beating faster than it was. You're breathing more shallowly, but quicker. Your adrenal glands down near your kidneys just started pumping adrenaline in. All of the blood was taken from your brain and everywhere else, pumped into your feet, or your legs and your arms, and they are like charged springs, and they're ready to do one of two things. Either kill me, or run away from me. Every single person in this room. And even some, let me ask for a show of hands. Has anybody ever seen that video before? Yeah. Did you jump? Yeah. I've seen it 200 times. I didn't even look at the damn thing, and I still find that, because the human scream is one of those things that's universal. Get close enough to the programming of the brain, and we are all the same. What turns us on and off is all the same. And that's what I want to share with you today. Now, don't do this at home. But if you took a pen and you stuck it in your ear, and you took another one, you stuck it into your eye, where it crosses on each side would be a pair of little almond-shaped pieces called the amygdala. And they become, everybody has kind of heard of those last couple of years. Because when I frightened you there just now, the video frightened you, that was the actor that got you jumping out of your chair, got your heart beating, got you want to beat the hell out of me or run away from me. And it is triggered by every single experience you ever have. Whether you are frightened, whether you're anxious, whether you're feeling love, whether you're feeling excited, it doesn't matter what it is, that part plays a part in your life every single waking second. Every thought you think is filtered through this. Every experience you have, if you're standing up here and you're doing a talk like this and somebody does that and closes themselves off completely, that's triggered. So, he doesn't like what he's hearing. Okay? So that is triggering all the time. Here's what it does. The reason that those amygdala, which were designed as part of the ancient emotional brain, the reason for their existence is very simple. They are designed to keep you alive. They are designed to make decisions on absolutely everything that happens to you as to, is this a threat or reward situation? Can I eat this or will it eat me? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this black? Is this white? Etc. And it's filtering every experience, even the thoughts that come into your mind. And it's very, very simple. First, it works faster than your conscious brain works because your conscious brain is like an extension to the house built above that emotional brain. It takes a little while for the message to get up there. So you were out of your chair, screaming, jumping, heart beating, before your brain said, freaking Irish idiot. I hate him. That was your brain catching up. A split second later, you thought, no, maybe I won't kill him this time. If he does it again, perhaps. So everything is filtered through, and it puts one of two labels on. It's binary. It's dumb as a brick. Two labels. This is a threat, or this is a reward. This is a positive, this is a negative. This is good for me, this is bad for me. And only after that label goes onto it, does that information get passed forward to the thinking brain. Let me ask for a show of hands. How many of you have ever met somebody and you instinctively, the first time you met them, you thought, don't like this person? Yeah, there was your reptile brain. That was your emotional brain reacting. It might, later on, you might have said, I always knew he was a complete blackguard. Or you forgot about it. It's like the horoscope you read in the paper. You read in the paper, if it's accurate, you remember it. If it's not, you forget about it. But there was something in that primitive part of your brain that was triggered by that person into a threat response. Similarly, we often meet people and we say, he's a lovely guy, with absolutely no freaking evidence whatsoever. And he turns out to be a total blackguard afterwards again. So that's your emotional brain at work. Now, it's only then that the thinking brain to say, hi, we just met somebody we kind of like. What do you think? And it's only at that stage that the rational brain gets to get involved. Now, if you work in an environment, or you live in an environment, or your life at this particular point in time is just negative, threatening, stressful situations, one after another, those little parts of your brain are just being triggered. They're like a car. It's like taking the car out of gear, putting your foot on the accelerator, and the engine just turns and turns and turns and turns and turns. And you know that feeling, don't you? Because it's there at 1 o'clock in the morning when the engine is turning over. And it turns over a period of time, if that's your experience of your life, it turns into what we describe as an experience of concern, worry, stress, etc. Now, if you happen to be in a place where the last couple of days you've got a succession of really good things going on, well, then you're triggered into a place where life feels satisfying and meaningful, and you feel valued and you feel useful. And some weeks and some days you feel like the top one and some the bottom one. And here's the reality. Some days it's going to be up and some days it's going to be down. And what you know for sure is when you're feeling really good, baby, the only way is down. What we forget is when you're feeling really bad, baby, the only way is up. And sometimes we forget that. But the critical thing I want you to take away from this is that particular ancient piece of circuitry, which was designed to protect you from saber-toothed tigers and existential threats, is there when the boss calls and says, come and see me in the office. It's there when you get an email that says, we've got to talk, from your favorite customer. It's there. Both of my parents, one of them's 87, one of them's 84, they're both alive. If I get a call from one of my brothers when I'm traveling, they never call me. If I get a call, immediately, you know what I'm talking about. So every single experience you have, When you see your son, your grandson, your lover, whatever, and you just feel your heart getting as big as a house, that's your emotional brain at work. It affects the way you feel. It affects the decisions you make. But most importantly, it affects the extent to which you engage with people. So because we are programmed in general, and it's a simple operating principle of the brain, we are programmed to minimize threats or move away from the unpleasant and move towards the pleasant. Because we tend to get an approach mentality where when things are going well, man, anything's possible. And when things are going badly, you can't see anything that could possibly go right. Once we understand that about us, and once we understand that that's the base level programming of everybody in this room and everybody on this planet, well, then you start to get in some insights into how do I get multiple generations working together, multiple cultures working together, multiple nationalities working together. And it's very simple. There's just a couple of things I'll share with you to go deeper, but let me give you the single mantra, and I see a few people in the room who've heard this before. It's really, really simple. At the end of the day, the biggest single thing over which you have control that determines the extent to which people engage with you is the way you show up, the behaviors you display. Because the way you show up, the behaviors you bring, determine directly how the other people around you feel. The way they feel determines the extent to which they engage. And the extent to which they engage determines everything about that relationship afterwards. And that's whether it's your husband, your wife, your kids, the people that work for you, with you, etc. The way you show up determines the way people feel. The way people feel determines the way they engage. The extent to which they engage determines the outcome of that relationship. And if you hold that principle in mind, well, then you realize, shoot, all of this stuff that we talk about, me included, I've written books on it, all of this stuff we talk about really just complicates what is a fundamentally simple thing. If we recognize that everybody wants to feel exactly the same as we do, that is not threatened, well then we already know what we need to do to get them on board. So, key principle of the brain, a working principle, is it's about minimizing threats and maximizing rewards. And that's why we would define emotional intelligence as a tool set that one uses in a commercial environment to make sure that you're continually managing the environment and managing the way you show up in such a way that negative emotions are handled intelligently so that the way you show up determines the way people feel and so on. Now, like me, I'm a pragmatist. I hate theory without practical. At the end of every session I go to, I'm waiting for somebody to say, here are the 5 things you can do. Okay? So let me go a little bit deeper and give you 5 things. And I'm going to share with you a model that comes from a chap called David Rock in Australia. And he's the leader and the founder of the Neuro Leadership Institute. And he did research on the last 20 years of neuroscience research on what triggers threats and what triggers rewards in our brains. And in 5 letters, he identified a model that describes the 5 things that your brain, my brain, everybody's brain is continually scanning the environment for, mostly at subconscious level. And it's continually scanning for positive or negative pushes, if you like, against these. And I'll talk about them a little bit more detail. And the 5 things that you need to be aware of is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So let's talk about status. Status is your perceived importance of where you are in the hierarchy, how important you are compared to others. We don't all need to feel like we're the most important person in the world. We have a sense of where we belong. And when you press against that status, when you demean somebody's status, the neuroscience research shows that it triggers a neural response in the brain. Actually, I've given you the positive one first there. Let's go to the positive. When you enhance somebody's status, when you catch them doing something wrong, give them some recognition, give them some reward, recognize good work, whatever it happens to be, you trigger a response in the reward circuitry in the brain, which is greater than the response triggered by money. And I see all the CFOs in the room going, ooh, this is great stuff. Imagine, just by enhancing somebody's status, And the sense of their status, you trigger a larger neural response than money. But when you demean somebody's status, it impacts in the same circuits that we feel physical pain. So it triggers the pain matrix. It is a painful experience to have your status demeaned. Now, I worked in an organization up to 4 years ago, and I was the executive vice president for international development. Because in that company, every time you looked for a raise in salary, they gave you no money, but they gave you a new title. So every time I looked for money, I got a better title. So it was a wonderful title. And to people in larger companies, it was really, oh God, he must walk on water. He's the executive vice president, with etc. And when Wiley Sons, which was a $2 billion company, took over our organization, everybody's titles went down about 4 or 5 steps, and I became head of international. Huh? Same job, same money, same people, exactly the same. The only thing that was different on the card, and I would have told you, I don't have an ego. I'm not worried about that. Hell, it was like I've been kicked. When you demean somebody's status, when you take it away from them, it really impacts. But on the other side, if you can show them what's good about them, if you can catch them doing things right, if you can find the things they're particularly good at and showcase them, well, then you dramatically impact the way they feel. And remember, the way they feel determines the extent to which they engage, which determines the outcome of that. So the first one is status. The second one is certainty. And our brains hate ambiguity because in prehistoric times, our survival depended on the ability to predict what was going to happen next. That's why we lived in caves, because not much happens in a cave. You could see just one outlet, and you knew you had a certain amount of predictability. Our brains hate ambiguity. When my company was taken over, a company called Profiles, and was taken over by Wiley, one of the terrible things in that situation, mergers and acquisitions, and it's an area I work in a lot right now, is that there's this sense of, will my job still be the same? Will my job still be there? Will I have the same money? Will I have the same status? Will I have all of this? That uncertainty, and one of the senior executives in that organization was quite brilliant. And what she said, she called together everybody for what the Americans call a town hall meeting, globally, online. And she said, we have no idea where the company is going right now, what's going to happen with the merger. And everybody's emotional circuitry went, because they triggered their uncertainty. Then she said, however, in 90 days, we're going to get together again, and we're going to tell you the plan. Okay? Immediately, the entire workforce settled down, people went back to normal, and it's like they forgot there was a problem. So when there's any ambiguity or any uncertainty, it triggers a threat response. It triggers exactly the same response as you feel when your life is threatened. Now, so what you really have to do, and if you put this in an intergenerational environment, and there are lots of challenges with this, is you have to make things, processes, commitments, structures really clear. I will be on the 17th of September of this year. I'll send my address to you all individually later. I will turn 60, okay? And let's imagine that in my organization, it was traditional for people to retire at 60. And I'm thinking of staying on. What's going through my mind? Will my money still be the same? What will happen with my pension? How will it work? How will my status go? All of that sort of thing. The uncertainty is what kills people. And people would rather have a negative certainty than a positive uncertainty. They would prefer to know the world is going to end on the 22nd than to say, you know what, we might still be here on the 23rd. We're more comfortable with certainty. Then there's autonomy. Can anybody remember a time recently when they were stressed? If you don't have your hand up, you're probably not alive. Every single person in this room has been stressed sometimes over the last while. Welcome to being a human. That's just a human experience. The worst thing about stress is not stress itself, that can be managed. It's when you feel that you have no options or no control. When you're at the mercy of something that's really stressing you, think there's no hope. That's what really kills us. So when we experience stressors, the threat response, as measured by the brain scans, is dramatically larger when we feel that we have no options. So even when there are situations, and there always are, where it seems like there are no options, you look for the smallest choices you can give people control over. And any amount of autonomy is better than none. Giving people choices, giving them options, giving them an ability to choose this way or that way, it's never too small an amount of autonomy to cede to people. We think, when we're sitting there, well, they're looking for a lot of money. Giving them control over this is not going to make much difference. You're wrong. Finding ways of giving people alternatives makes a big, big difference. Relatedness is a sense of belonging and connection. I arrived at the hotel in Cran last evening, and on a scale of 1 to 10 in sociability, I am a 3 or a 4. That means that I don't really want to meet you as a new buddy. I have enough friends in my life, and it's very stressful for me to meet new people, okay? Now, doing this has nothing to do with meeting people. This is performing. This is different. So when the organizers, where's Sandra, said, we're going to have a dinner for all the speakers, that for me is, oh my God, I'm going to have to socialize with 14 people I don't know. Holy God. Now, I have a daughter, and she's a 10 on sociability. She's like a dog with 2 tails. You know, if you say to her, there's 14 people you haven't met before, she'll go into that room, give it really, really excited. But me, it's hell. And it's only hell, and it's stressful because we view new or different people as a threat. That's a survival mechanism. That's the tribal thing that allowed us to survive in prehistoric times. Now, that was only threatening. I had a fantastic dinner last night with a fantastic group of people because the moment I shook hands with 1 or 2 of them, I got a little spurt of oxytocin, a little spurt of a hormone, which is a hormone that was injected into your mama and injected into you the first time she picked you up and made you bond and enhanced that feeling of one of us versus one of those or one of them. Okay? So when we meet people, we go to a party for the first time, even if you're high on the extroversion scale, everybody feels a certain amount of stress. It's not cognitively correct. You think, but I'm an extrovert. I shouldn't be feeling this. It's nothing to do with this. It's the emotional brain. It's your survival thing going on. Once you meet a few people, and once you shake a few hands and you exchange a few jokes and you have a couple of glasses of wine, then they're all part of your in-group. Now we're all pals. Now, that has really big implications in intergenerational workforces because very frequently we're kept in silos. And we keep ourselves in silos. Here's the music I like. Don't understand how they could possibly like that music. Here's social media. Don't understand that crap. Here's whatever. We tend to be silos. So you want to build that sense of relatedness. You bring people together. You bring people together like Ava was talking about this morning. At the beginning of the day, everybody get them doing some exercises. You do like the lady in Danfoss said, get them into the hall. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. You get them involved like we did, and I've forgotten the name of the chemical company, who had older and younger folk working together, and you get that bonding, you get that oxytocin response. Now, so far, have you noticed this costs that much? Okay? It requires a little bit of thought, but it doesn't cost a cent to actually make this happen. Now, the last one. When I travel, I always buy an emergency row seat. And I buy the emergency row seat, not because so I can stretch my legs, that's a secondary benefit, but I buy it because I am completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Allergic to what I call the Ryanair rush, okay? And the Ryanair rush is that rush that happens when perfectly civilized bunch of people like us are sitting at the gate, and then somebody comes up and says, we're ready to board flight 557, and boom, and the cattle take off for the gate, and they go. And that stresses the hell out of me, and it stresses the hell out of you. Even if you enjoy it, it stresses the hell out of you, because you're thinking, is he getting ahead of me? Is he getting behind me? So I always get the emergency row, because I can then walk on, smug, with my bag, at the end, because they keep, on most airlines, They keep the emergency row luggage compartment closed down because you can't have it at your feet when you take off. So you stroll, I'll generally stroll on last or second last, and I put my bags on. When I was boarding in Paris yesterday, I waited, smug, superior Deiric. Look at all those cattle going up to get their plane. I am just going to be cool and relaxed here. Now, there's a certain part of you, the competitive part, he wants to be up there in the middle of it. About 5 people left, and I went up and I joined. Now, my seat is assured, the plane is going nowhere, I know my bag is going to be okay. And just as we're down to 2 or 3 people, a guy comes up from behind me, and he goes in 2 people ahead of me. I could have freaking killed him. And immediately I could feel it, my heart beating, the hair standing up, and you get these thoughts of blood and death, and I'm going to pound this guy. How dare he? And it's probably something as an Irish person that we absorbed from our British neighbors. The British have a really strong sense of fair play, what's correct. And when you join a line in the United Kingdom, you join a line in Ireland, doesn't matter if you're 99, as long as you're 99. As long as nobody knocks you back, okay? So that really offended me. And as I'm walking on, I'm saying, there's exactly what you're talking about, Deiric, fairness. When you feel that you're not being treated fairly, and it felt unfair. And I'm saying all the time to myself, this is an irrational response. And still I'm thinking, I hate him. I hate him. And I gave him a little bit of the hairy eyeball, you know, as you're going by this sort of, that sort of withering look, which he didn't even see. But it made me feel better. So we want to be treated fairly. Now, the key thing there is when you bring together diverse workforces, and particularly if they are diverse, if at the moment they are not integrated and you haven't started to build a sense of relatedness, is that one group will always think, or both groups will always think the other group is getting better treatment. And that is a completely impossible threat to deal with. You can never eliminate it. All you can do is continually address it. And you continually address it by being seen to be generous, not just fair, but being generous to all. And the two, I put them in capitals there, but it's really, really important. My wife and I met 27 years ago, and we only married 2.5 years ago, as it happens, because you're getting to that age where you start to worry about inheritance tax, you know? Never mattered before. When we were newly in the relationship, every couple of months or, you know, every so often she'd say, do you really love me? And I say, jeez, Marie, I love the bones of you. I absolutely adore you. You are the reason for my existence, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be coming from the heart. You think it's all smarm. No, I swear, I mean, this woman she's just a fantastic lady. And she said, but you never tell me. You never tell me. And what I've started to do since is just adapt the behavior a little bit. And I remember to say, I love you, darling. I really love you. And I say it more often than I ever would have before. We need to have the way people are feeling demonstrated to us. It's not real until we see it. So if you're talking about fairness or you're talking about status or you're talking about it needs to be demonstrated. So those five simple factors, they alone can change the entire tenor, the entire atmosphere in an organization. I was working with a large biotech organization that was taken over by an even larger biotech organization. And the culture started to fall apart because in the way of mergers, it went on forever. It went on for way, way too long, and people were really stressed out with the uncertainty with their status being demeaned and so on and so forth. And the leadership said, we're really serious about doing something about this. We'd like you to come in and talk to us about how emotional intelligence can change our environment. And I started laying out 4-month plans, 5-month plans, and they gave me 90 minutes. They gave me 90 minutes to address the senior team. Said, that's really all we can give you. The one thing that I did with them was this. Explained a little bit of the neuroscience behind it, and then said, next time you're sending out any communique to people in the organization, filter it through S, status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness, and see, are you enhancing them or demeaning those factors? Those factors alone, those are the 5 factors that your brain and everybody's brain is continually scanning the environment, looking for threats or looking for rewards. Now, that is one approach. okay? And it's an approach that will really, really work. Somebody said this morning, who was talking about feedback? Somebody mentioned feedback, and I think in organizations, we all want feedback, right? Until we get it. And the problem when somebody comes to you and they say, can I give you some honest feedback? Is that it doesn't feel like it's going to be a good experience. And there's an expression, constructive criticism. And I never felt constructed, ever, after being criticized. Okay? So feedback, even with the best will in the world, is a real minefield. So let's imagine that I'm going to give you some feedback as an individual. And let's imagine that the size of this line determines how much feedback. Does that feel like enough feedback for you? Would that be about right? Does it feel right? Or would you prefer this much? Or maybe should I have that much? What feels about the right amount of feedback? Yeah, you're right, there is no blasted answer to it. You should be looking puzzled because there is none, because it all depends, first off, on what you're going to give me, but it also depends on what I want. Because if I am not interested in having your feedback, well then you're going to trigger a threat response in me. If I'm interested in having your feedback and you give me just a little bit too much, or a little bit of the wrong stuff, or the right thing at the wrong time, you trigger a threat response. So what you've got to do all the time is, as I said earlier on, take control of the way you show up. Because the way you show up and the way you behave determines the way people feel. The way they feel determines the extent to which they engage, and that determines everything else. And every one of you is different. There was a movie, has anybody, I was going to use a clip from this. Has anybody ever heard of the movie Life of Brian? Yeah, I wasn't sure if it had flying. It's an old one. And there's a wonderful scene in it where Brian is up at a window and he's telling them to stop following him. They've mistaken him for the Messiah. And he says to the hordes, you're all individuals. And they all say, we are all individuals. And that's reality. You are all individuals. Every single one of you needs something different. You need the person who's managing you, who's working with you, to show up in a slightly different way. So SCARF will get you there, and it will make you feel appreciated because, and the key at the end of the day is, everything comes down to, we just want to feel appreciated. To feel appreciated, the people who are managing us have to show up in a way that works with us. So you can use the SCARF mechanism, and that's a little bit like going in at sale time in to buy a suit. Sometimes you'll find some that fit you, and sometimes you won't. And sometimes you'll put some on, and they just will not work at all. And sometimes you buy those, and you take them home. So there's the off-the-shelf approach to things, where you say SCARF, and you know what? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. If you remember nothing else from my talk, and you take away SCARF and you start using that, good for you, okay? But really, the best thing you can do is personalize the way you show up to different people. Because I'm telling you that even though my brain operates the same as yours at 30 and yours at 25, the things that trigger that mechanism are slightly different. My interests are slightly different. What I need from you is slightly different. So I need you to tailor the way you show up to me. So we worked for a long time, over a 20-year period, to create a collection of behaviors, 42 of them, in all, that trigger these positive responses in people, okay? Now, the key thing to remember is they trigger different behaviors, trigger different responses in different people. So you need to know, what's this person expect? What's this group expect? So let me show you, for example. Let's imagine that this is a behavior that I can demonstrate as a leader. To what extent do I show up in a way that makes others feel appreciated? There's status. Make somebody feel appreciated. By the way, making somebody feel appreciated can be, good morning, how are you? It can be, thank you, please, how was the weekend? It doesn't have to be, here, let me see how much I've got in my pocket. Charity can be, or not charity, but recognition, appreciation can be as simple as just seeing somebody. So we create a model of 42 behaviors. I'm not going to show you all 42. I'm just going to show you that consistent in the way they say, in what they say and do. One of the things about a great parent, One of the things we value in a great parent is we always know how they're going to react. So if we do something bad as a kid, we always knew how our folks were going to react if they were parenting us well, right? If you were in doo-doo, you knew you were in doo-doo, right? You knew the moment you did it, you knew it. That consistency, that certainty, that predictability made us feel safe. It's the same with the people that work with us. So there's another behavior, being consistent the way you, in what you say and do. And then you got 42 others down along like that. Now here's the key thing. Different people require different things. So what we then ask them is we say, hey, how important is it to you that Deiric, as your leader, demonstrates this behavior? Not at all important. Slightly important. Yeah. Quite important and very important. So it goes from 1 to 5. So they give a score on importance. And then we say, and how well does he do it? So all you do, really, is you're looking at people and you're saying, how important is it that Deiric demonstrates his behavior? How well does he demonstrate it? And then we use a very, very simple traffic light system just to say, where do you need to focus? The green says, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The red says, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. It is as simple as asking people, what way do you need us to show up as an organization? Now, I was only given 45 minutes, and I'm grateful for the 45 minutes, by the way, and I'm going to keep it on time, so I'm not going to dive into this in any great depth. What I am going to do is I'm going to say to you, if you are sitting there and thinking, I wonder what impact do I have on the people that work with me? Well, wonder no more, because you've listened very attentively for 35 minutes. I've stolen 35 minutes of your life. If I took your money, you could get more money, but I've taken 35 minutes of your life. You're never getting it back. So I want you to get some sort of return on that. So if anybody here is curious how you or a colleague are seen to show up by the people that work with you and work for you, well then just go and sign up on this line, and we'll set you up to get a personalized report to look through the eyes of the people that work for you. And better than that, we'll actually, oh, by the way, that big long URL is Genos Emotional Intelligence with no spaces. But better than that, we'll get our partner just up the road here in Fast Forward who will bring the report to you and feed it back to you. Normally, it's a couple of €100 to go through it. So seriously, to be able to get a glimpse through the eyes of the people that work for you and work with you at how am I showing up in a way that's impacting you positively, and what am I doing that's turning you off, it's a tremendous benefit. But here's my key message. You've got to figure out a way, first off, to consciously, intentionally, and in an aware way, manage the way you show up. And if you can personalize that according to the audiences that you have within the organization, well, then you'll have the actual or the absolute primo results. So that's all I wanted to say to you. So I'll say to you finally, Gurev Maharat, which kind of means Havala, which I'm trying to say. I know it's more like Havala, but that probably sounded Arabic. So I'll just go with thank you. So thank you very much for laughing in the right places and all that. Thanks a million. Thank you. Thank you.